we get to understand Uganda's free trade zones. How impactful will this be to the traders, and how best can you position yourself to benefit of these particular zones? Let's have more of this discussion.
A free zone, in simplicity, is basically a gazetted area anywhere in Uganda where you can either process, you can manufacture or store your goods without paying any import duties and taxes. So that is, in simple terms, what a free port zone. So once an area is designated, once an area is gazetted as a free zone, whether it's a public free zone, whether it's a private free zone, that area, you'll be able to import your inputs, you'll be able to import your construction materials, you'll be able to import intermediate goods, spare parts, equipment, without paying import duties, with the understanding that you're going to process, you're going to manufacture, you're going to trade for the purpose of export. Uganda Free Zones Authority was set up in 2014. That is when the legal and also the institutional framework came into existence. So the Free Zones as an institution promotes the development of export processing zones and free port zones in Uganda. So the institution has a mandate of development, establishment, marketing and maintenance of the free zones. So I'll just break down these functions into four. One is on the role of development and establishment. As a government agency, we have the mandate to construct industrial facilities in free zones. Industrial facilities, these include industrial sheds, these include warehousing facilities, but also ensure that we provide the basic utilities for one to do business in a free zone. And this includes power, extending power to the boundary of the zone, but also ensuring that we have the on-site power infrastructure. In addition to that, in the development category, we also provide water reticulation in a free zone. We can also provide ICT and telecommunication. So if I say development, if I say establishment, if I say management, as an institution, we have that mandate to establish. Why do we do that? We do that so that we provide ready, customized facilities for those who are doing business in the free zone. So the other function we do is to promote and also market the development of these free zones. I'll later on go into the detail of what a free zone is. And by promoting, we want the private sector to take the lead in developing these free zones. So what I talked about, the development, what I talked about development in terms of providing industrial infrastructure, in terms of providing utilities, and all the necessary services for those who wish to set up in a free zone. The private sector can also take up that. So we market the free zone, the free port, the EPZ as a scheme so that the private sector can also embrace it. Thirdly, we license and regulate. So if you want to set up an export processing zone, if you want to set up a free port zone, or if you want to set up the umbrella free zone, you must get a license. So we license you, we regulate you, we facilitate you so that you establish. And you cannot start a free zone related business. You cannot start an EPZ, you cannot start a free port unless you have a license. Then the last but not least is on the overall supervision, maintenance, and also overseeing the development of these free zones in the country, and also ensuring that we provide an advisory role to government to ensure that the investment climate for one who operates in a free zone or who wants to set up in a free zone is favorable. So those, I would say, those are the four core functions that we do. Of course, because our business is export, the best or the most competitive area for one to set up a free zone would be either at a border point or within border towns or at airports or river port or lake port, because the whole idea around these schemes is whatever activities, whether manufacturing, whether commercial or service related activities, they have to be geared towards export, because you need to set up in a place that is strategic, either at a main highway where you will be able to transport your goods out of the country, or where you import and it should be easy for you to access the free zone. So the role in terms of location, proximity either to a market or an outlet of a country, or proximity to where there is already existing infrastructure. Existing infrastructure could be power, it could be highway roads, it could be, like again I said, an airport, because it's an exit point for the goods. So the whole idea of location and also the strategic location of an area in terms of where you set up is very, very key. In totality, we currently have 32 private developers who are also operators in these zones. So the scheme is primarily driven by the private sector, and that was the ideal idea, or why the schemes were set up, so that the private sector drives them. So we have 32 that are existing, that we have licensed, that are gazetted, and some of them are operating, some are still in the earlier stages of construction. One, if you are a developer, you will need, first of all, to have a site. Because again, I said we look at a developer with the understanding that you're the one going to set up the infrastructure, the necessary infrastructure for you to set up. So one, you need a site. The site has to be identified, and then we come and verify whether it would be suitable for its purpose. It doesn't have any environmental encumbrances, it's not in a floodplain, for instance, or whether customs will be able to come and supervise or control whatever is going into that facility. So the site is key. If you want to develop a zone, you must have a site. Two, you have to register your business. Either you incorporate a company that is going to develop that zone, or you register a company that is going to develop the zone. Then three, we need a business plan. Business plan for somebody who is developing a zone, for instance, gives us an indication, first of all, of the investment that is required for you to set up that zone, how many jobs, if you're going to develop and also operate. It also gives us insight in terms of your export projections, where you're going to get financing, which are your target markets. So you need a business plan as well. Then we also require an environmental and social impact assessment of where you're going to set up. So before you actually develop the zone, you need to have that environmental and social impact assessment. So if I may summarize the key requirements: one, a site, it has to be identified. Two, you need to incorporate. You need to give us a business plan. You need to carry out an environmental and social impact assessment. Then the other requirement that is very instrumental is financing. You have to show us, and this is usually in the business plan, but also when we do the evaluations, that you have the financial capacity of setting up a zone, or establishing a zone, or operating a free zone. So those are primarily, I would say, the 5 parameters that we look out for. We give 3 types of licenses. Maybe I need to emphasize that. We give the developer's license, which is usually given to an entity that is going to set up the infrastructure for its own use or for leasing out to other companies. Then we give an operator's license, which is usually given to the companies that are operating within an existing zone. And thirdly, we give a manager's license. A manager is a license given to a company that will carry out the everyday management of the companies that are operating in the free zone. So in terms of the fees, to get a developer's license, the cost is $5,000, and it's usually for 5 years. We give it for a period of 5 years. It takes you 5 years. And then in the 6th year, you pay $1,000 subsequently. Then an operator's license is $1,000, and that one is an annual requirement. It has to be paid every year. So an operator and also a manager, if you're managing the zone, will require a license at a cost of $1,000. For us to cancel your license, usually we look at your performance. If, say, we license you and you tell us that we are going to carry out, say, I'll give an example, maybe fish processing, and we find that you've started doing business, but then you've deviated into other activities, some of which may be illegal, and have no connection with the license we've issued you, that is when we can revoke. But before we revoke, we notify you and say that we give you licensing conditions. 1, you have to start your business within 12 months. Then 2, we tell you that if you intend to deviate from the activities to which we attach this license, or at any one time if you deviate, you inform us and you don't, then we can cancel, revoke. Then 3, if the activities that you're carrying out are endangering the environment or have any negative impacts, and clearly we've worked out with other government institutions and it has been established that that project is not viable, then we revoke that license. So, but the good thing, we've not had those scenarios because the conditions are very clear at the point of licensing. If you cannot start within the 12 months, or if your business is going to endanger the environment, then we will make sure that an EIA is carried out and then environment audits are carried out on an annual basis. The other scenario of when we may revoke your license is if you're not complying with the conditions on information, the information you give us in terms of the jobs, in terms of the turnover. If the information you give us is incorrect, it's inaccurate, and we notice that there's some information that you're retaining and you're not sharing, you're not transparent, then the activities that you're doing maybe are dubious and they're illegal, you're involved in illicit trading activities. For instance, like I said, goods that go into a zone are exempt. So if we have a scenario where your goods came into the zone, you cannot account for them, or they are found outside the zone and there's no clear explanation, those are scenarios where we can also revoke your license. Well, I must say that the reason that Uganda took some time to embrace the scheme was because we had other similar export promotion schemes that were in the country. We had schemes like the manufacturing under bond, duty-free remission, and others. So then too, the legal framework had to be put in place for us to be able to actually implement these zones. So by the time the legal processes of enacting the law were completed, of course, other countries had already moved ahead of us. But I must say that we've not done so badly, that even some of our countries like Uganda, which came in only in 2014 after the others have started, we've noticed that it has given us an upper hand in learning lessons on where those countries went wrong in implementing this legal framework, and it has helped us to come up with a legal framework and also develop strategies that are more customized to the current needs of the country and the needs of the potential investors in these free zones. I would say 2020, end of 2020, 21 is when Entebbe International Airport, the construction commenced. And I must say that right now, the end of the financial year 21-22, 40% of the works, the construction works of Entebbe International Airport have been completed. And this financial year, we think that we'll be able to complete 80%. Now, what do we want in Entebbe? It's a flagship project, and it's targeting exporters of goods through the airport. It's basically targeting high-value products and those who are dealing in perishable products, like horticulture products, fruits and vegetables, dairy, beef, and also mineral processing. And we're also looking at possibilities of setting up pharmaceutical vaccine manufacturing, attracting vaccine manufacturing companies. So the project is 100% funded by the government of Uganda. It will be the first ever government-owned free zone in the country. And it will make it easier for one to do business. Why? Because we have put up industrial sheds for those who wish to process and export through the airport. So there will be fully built industrial space. So all you bring is your machinery or equipment, and then start your business. Then it will also have power, water, and ICT facilities, but also will have government institutions that facilitate the importation and exportation station right there. So it will be a one-stop, I would say a one-stop public free zone, which will facilitate export of perishable and high-value products through the airport. Yes, I must say that we are currently discussing with the Uganda National Oil Company. We were involved in the master planning process for the Kabale Industrial Park, and we have at least over 50 acres which have been earmarked for setting up an export processing zone at Kabale Industrial Park. And the location is actually very good, right next to the highway, the airport. And we will also target agro-processing, but also companies that are doing petrochemical activities. So yes, that is one of the areas that we are looking at setting up a free zone. I'll just emphasize the importance of the stakeholders in the development of the free zone scheme, generally both public and private. The key partner right now is the Revenue Authority because these schemes are custom controlled facilities. So we work very closely with them in ensuring that the infrastructure that is provided in the free zones is suitable and it will not lead to illicit trade. So they work with us, we've worked with them in developing systems, customized systems for the importation and exportation of free zone goods. We work with them in inspecting the suitability of a site or a location for establishment of a free zone. But also we work with them generally in terms of incentive, ensuring that the incentives that are implemented facilitate actually doing business in these zones. So they are very instrumental. Of course, we have other partners. The parent ministry, the Ministry of Finance, is a key player in financing and providing us with a budget, the necessary budget, and they've been very, very supportive. We've had, like the public zone, I'm talking about the Entebbe International Airport, which is 100% funded by government. So they played a key role in ensuring that we have the finances that we need to develop these zones. Then they've also played a very key role in the legal framework we have for free zones. We are operating with the Free Zones Act right now, and we are working very closely with the ministry in amending the legal framework, expanding the current schemes that we have in the free zones to include more special economic zones, because right now we're only implementing the free port which is part of the special economic zone arrangement, but we're expanding. So the ministry has been very instrumental in, first of all, having the legal framework in place, but also the continuous improvement of the legal framework, and that process has already started. The other key important role has been in terms of incentives. The domestic incentives. You know, we have these ones at the region, like the ones we agree on and the common external tariff, but we also have the domestic incentives, like corporation tax, like the VAT, excise duty, stamp duty. So the ministry has been very instrumental in ensuring that we have an incentive regime for these free zones. The other key stakeholders, of course, we have Parliament, still on the role they play in budgeting, but also, they generally having the legal framework in place. We have Ministry of Agriculture, which works with us very closely on inspections of the agricultural products that go out of these zones, ensuring that we always have inspectors to check the standards, to issue the certificate and phytosanitary certificates for the exporters, especially of agricultural products. We have other stakeholders like the National Bureau of Standards. We work very closely and we have a memorandum of understanding with them. The Registration Services Bureau. There are a range of stakeholders we work with. Basically, all government institutions, ideally. Ministry of Works has been also a key partner with us, especially for that Entebbe International Airport project. We have a team that has supported us in supervising the works, overseeing the contracts of the companies that are constructing the Entebbe International Airport. I would say that if I look at the private sector, I'll talk about the private sector. Of course, the developments, the inflation, the war, the geopolitics globally, the war between Russia and Ukraine has affected companies in terms of export, accessing some of those exports. We see in the last financial year, for instance, 21-22, companies that were sourcing some of their raw materials from Russia and Ukraine have had to look for new markets for sourcing their raw materials. But also those that were selling into those markets now have had to look for other markets. So inflation has affected us. Inflation has affected us in terms of increasing the cost of fuel, which is an important input into the production process. So we see that, of course, if we look at the exports also, for instance, as an institution or as the free zone, between financial year 2020-21, 2020-21 and 21-22, we saw a significant drop in the export earnings. From, I would say, we had about 1.25 billion. There was a drastic drop to about 67.8 million in exports. So we see that the global economy, the changes in the inflation has really impacted us. Financing has also been a challenge, access to finance, where we see that some of the companies that were in the development phase have been impacted with the current tightening of the monetary policies. Because interest rates went up and they were not able to borrow and expand their projects. So financing was an issue, but also, again, we cannot forget COVID. The COVID effects to date still affect us, or still have affected our operations, of course as an institution, but also as the free zone in general, in terms of accessing markets, the increase in the air freight costs for those who export, especially to the airport, due to the COVID interference, increase in costs, labor costs, dropped also in the employment levels, especially in the zones that were relying on those external markets, especially in the EU. So we see that also in terms of employment, there was some downsizing in some of the zones. No, we haven't had any mergers. What we actually had was delays in commencement of some projects that were ideally would have started in about 2 years ago. So they had changes in shareholding and also exit of potential financing partners, which affected the commencement of these projects. Then those that had started and had plans for expansion, also we've seen a delay for some of them because of, again, financing and also changes in priorities, especially among the shareholders of this company. So we see that it has also somehow impacted, ideally, the general performance of the free zone scheme. I must say it's one of the biggest challenges that we have as an institution because best practice, when we talk about free zones, when we talk about special economic zones, they're expansive areas, and you expect that in a gazetted free zone you have 30 or 50 plus companies operating within one area. So because of course, access to land, the zones, in terms of the size, that like the Entebbe airport, for instance, which it's not the ideal size that would want for a free zone, but because of the access to land issues, we've not been able to establish large, massive size free zones. So again, because of the access to land, we see that the private sector, the kind of free zones that are set up have largely been single factories. So going forward, what are we doing as government? We are working very closely with district local governments. We are interesting them in the need to put aside large parcels of land for setting up free zones. So we've been worked with some of the districts like Mubende. We've worked with Busia. We're engaging Kole, we are engaging Moyo, we are engaging Bushenyi, and so many other districts. We've engaged Kumi, and some of these districts have been, I must say, have been very, very positive, and they've accepted to give us land. So in the next 2 to 3 years, we are going to expand these zones, and our strategy is to make sure that at least we have one free zone, government-owned free zone in each region. Northern Uganda, we are prioritizing Moyo because that is where we've been able to get land. Then on the eastern, we've been able to get some parcels, fairly big parcels of land. We are looking at Kumi, we are looking at Bujiri for now, but with potential for expansion. So Western Uganda, we have Hoima. We have some land in Hoima, and that one will be another primary project for us. We hope to get more land than we have right now. Central, right now we have land in Buaya, but also want to prioritize Mubende. The reason we give the 12 months is because free zones are capital intensive. They're highly capital intensive. For one to set up a free zone, for instance, if we gazette an area, they have the first thing that they need to have is perimeter wall or fence. Reason is there has to be a clear demarcation of a custom controlled area and a non-custom controlled area. So the cost of the actual development, in addition to the primary stage of surveying, you have to make sure that you fence off, you put buildings, those buildings, the warehouses must have also certain security parameters to ensure that they, at any one time, the Revenue Authority can monitor the activities in the zone. So we note that in the first 12 months, we give you the time to be able to conclude your master planning, to conclude your the planning for extending of this infrastructure and also putting up these buildings. We note that at least the period is fair enough. In fact, if in the 12 months you're not able to complete what you've set out in your implementation plan, we can even extend from the 12 months and extend your license. So because of the capital intensive nature of these free zones, they're highly capital intensive, You have to satisfy the interest of the stakeholders, like I said, customs. We give you that period where we think that at least it's fair enough, you'll be able to start something. And it's even extendable. The Africa Continental Free Trade Area is very instrumental for the growth of the free zones, because now we want potential investors in this scheme to think beyond the traditional markets like the EU, like the AGOA, to these other new markets within Africa where standards are not as stringent as those other markets in the EU or in the Middle East or Asia. So the Africa Continental Free Trade Area is very instrumental, and right now we are working within the ESC, the East African Community, to come up with regulations that will enable products that are produced in free zones, in special economic zones or export processing zones, to access those markets with a special treatment. So it's very instrumental for us because with the free zone scheme, we'll be able to export products, competitive standard products, into those markets instead of taking them to the other markets like EU or AGOA, again, with more stringent standards. So we've mapped out, of course, as an institution, we've already carried out studies and mapped out those sectors which would be very, very strategic for us as a country. And also we know the countries that, we know that as a country we have a competitive but also comparative advantage in agro-processing. So we've already mapped out those strategic sectors and products that will be able to that Uganda and within the free zone scheme will be able to market us as a country. As we close this discussion, I want to urge the private sector out there, those who wish to manufacture, those who wish to process and sell their goods out of Uganda. You're not looking at this market, you're looking at export. Please come to the Free Zones Authority so that you can benefit from the tax and non-tax incentives that come out of operating in a free zone. Again, when you operate in a free zone, you have an upper hand. You have those physical incentives, especially for importation. All your products, inputs, all your intermediate inputs, construction materials, equipment, office supply come into the free zone duty-free. So when you operate in a free zone, you have an advantage of producing your product with the right standard, but also at the best price to be able to sell into the regional and also international markets. All we want from you is to register. So come so that we take you through the process of operating in a free zone. It's not a difficult scheme to operate in. We work closely with you because the moment you become a free zone, we attach specific relationship managers who facilitate you through the entire operations of your business. So we are located on Communication House, floor 6. We are the only institution on that floor. So please come to us, reach out to us. You can also go to our website, www.freezones.go.ug, so that you can get more information. But please come to us. We encourage the private sector out there to come and embrace the free zone, to come and work with us as we grow the country.
All right, and there you have it from that insightful conversation and analytical discussion regarding Uganda's free zones. Meanwhile, after the break, Smart Means Business will return with more on ground to understand why Ugandans still have a low saving culture. More of that is coming up. Keep it here.